All right, so we are back on our Robotech project. Um, this is going to take some time because I'm trying to sand all those smooth, as I said in the previous video. So I'm not sure, how often I'll get a video out. I'm going to try to keep them short and try to get as much work done as I can. But anyways, so as you're familiar, or maybe familiar with, when you 3D print a part, it's not perfectly smooth. You're going to have little lines and, stuff. And so what I'm shooting for is something more like this, where it's, you look at it and you would not know right off the bat that it's been 3D printed. So this is what I'm after. So the first thing I typically do is go over it with 50 grit or 80, whatever I have, 50 grit sandpaper. And that just knocks off any of the high points, knocks off any peaks. It starts to smooth it out a little bit. Now, from what I found, PLA is fairly hard to sand. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort to really sand down PLA. Maybe not a lot. I guess it depends on what you're used to. Definitely more than wood, and more than ABS. ABS will sand a little bit easier than this. So I just go over it with 50 grit, just to start smoothing it, just to start rounding it. And then after that, I will either go over it with a filler primer or that, but I basically do alternating methods of these. And I don't really think it matters which one you do first. I mean, I've tried both ways and ultimately I end up with the same result. But basically, just put a bit of that on it. And yeah, I know I should wear gloves, whatever, get over it. And you just kind of smear that on. You don't want it too thick. You want it thick enough to start to cover issues or imperfections. But if it's too thick, it'll take a while to dry. And if it's really too thick, it'll crack as it's drying. All right, so I'll just go over the whole thing with that. And then once that's dry, which doesn't take long, this stuff dries pretty quick, but then I'll go over it with a sanding block or sandpaper, something like this, something like 100 grit or 120 grit or something, not the 50 grit again. But I'll go over it with something, again, maybe like 120. And then I will shoot it with the filler primer, let that set, and then sand it again with like 120 or finer. And then I end up with something that looks like this. And you can see there's primer, there's the glazing putty in there. And once I get it like this, I wipe it down with a towel with like, not acetone, but like paint thinner. What am I using? Mineral spirits. Mineral spirits will not take the primer off. Mineral spirits will not melt the PLA. It just gets all the dust off and it cleans it for the next coat. So right now with this, I'm going to shoot this with some filler primer. Because right now it's hard to tell. I mean, it feels fairly smooth, but it's hard to tell where I still need to fill until I get that filler primer on it. So here's one where I put the next coat of filler primer, and then you could tell some areas that are a little bit problematic. Now, some of these, like right around here, I'm not too worried about that yet. This is kind of a hard area to take care of. What I've been doing with this one is I'll take my X-Acto blade, once I think this is pretty much done, and I'll just go in here and I'll just kind of cut in those finer details, like around here. And then I'll go in with some sandpaper, just kind of fold it up into a corner and just really go in there very precisely and just kind of sand around those to sharpen up corners like that. I'll do the same thing with openings like here. With this area here, that's just some of that filler that's kind of stacked up a little bit thick, so I'll go in and kind of clean that up a little bit. So when it's closer to this stage or better, I'll start fine-tuning some of those details. And then ultimately, we get it looking like this, where it's smooth, you can't see any more panel lines. There's a few minor ones. This one could probably use a little bit more of this, but I won't go over the entire thing. I'll just touch it in spots where it needs it, go back and fine-tune some areas. And eventually, it'll all be just like this right here. no lines, perfectly smooth. And you can see this is a little sharper now. Now the panel lines in here, those, if you'll notice on this one, those panel lines aren't near as sharp. They're not near as clear. They're still there. You can just barely see them. So one thing that you should do as you're going through this process is re-clean out those panel lines. And they're part of the print. That's part of the STL file for printing this. And once you sand it down, the this stuff will go into the panel lines. So then when you sand it down, you can see them. So you can just go in here. Now, if you're better than me, maybe you can freehand it. I can't really do that. I have a tool that I use. Now, this may or may not be the best tool for this. I don't even remember where or why I got this. It's just a stainless steel sheet, very flexible, with different shapes. I think it's supposed to be like a guide or a template for, I don't know. I don't remember the intended purpose of this. But what I can do is I can lay that right there, like where that line is. And then I can use the back side of my X-Acto knife here, and now I have a nice straight edge to go along. And I can just kind of re-scrape that. And I'm using the back edge of the blade. Using the back edge of the blade to drag across and scrape and cut into that line. This is also very tedious and very time-consuming. And there's another one here. And you just got to hold your guide, whatever you're using. I like this because it's flexible. It can bend around those curves. And just kind of re-scribe in those panel lines like that. And so now when I go over with primer, that'll be more clear. And there's another one here, another one here. There's some little square openings here. I can just kind of cut out that that putty filler, just kind of scrape that out. And it doesn't have to be perfect because I can fine tune that later. Right here, we don't want all that in there. So again, I can just kind of scrape that out. And I don't want to sand over my workbench too much, but because I don't want dust all over everything. But you get the idea. You just have to take your time, just carve out, sand out all the details. And then again, you're looking for something like this. Now this needs another coat of primer. Like I said, maybe a little bit more filler here. I don't know, that's not too bad. Maybe just a little bit more filler here. That's actually looking pretty good. I might just do a little bit of filler here, sand that smooth, and then prime it, sand it smooth again, rescribe the panel lines, and then this will be done. This one's pretty much almost done. So so let me get another coat of primer on these, and I got to wipe these off, get another coat of primer on those, sand it down, and see what those look like. Now I'm not going to show you half an hour of sanding and filling and priming and sanding and filling. Basically, those are the steps I take. It's just a constant process of fill it, prime it, or fill it, sand it, prime it, see what it looks like, and then repeat as necessary. And again, as you're going, just keep scribing those panel lines. And if you don't do that after every couple of steps, you're going to lose the panel lines. All right, so you gotta keep on top of those panel lines. If they look like they're starting to disappear too much, start cutting them out. So let me get these done. So I gotta get these 4 pieces here done, and then I think I can start assembling the legs. Let me get some more work done. I'll get back with you here in just a second. I'm just going to start right here with step 1. So for step 1, we printed the parts for the foot. So go ahead. If you haven't already, you can print the parts for the foot. And see if we can zoom in here a little bit. There we go. Stop. My camera's not even cooperating. So anyways, so we print these pieces that get glued together, these pieces that get glued together, same with left and right feet. So that gives you this. That would be, again, those two. Now, I already went ahead and glued them together, sanded them smooth, filled them, sanded them, got them all smooth, and I painted with satin black. I chose satin black because I thought glass back would be too glossy, and I thought flat black would be too flat, so I went with satin. Now eventually I will mask off and airbrush that trailing edge here with either titanium or maybe burnt iron or something. But that'll be something along here. It's a little bit too cold to be airbrushing. And I rattle canned a few other parts, and I probably shouldn't have, just because it's too cold, but I'm kind of, anxious to get more done. So I'll probably have to redo those last parts I just painted. So again, you're going to do that twice, and then this one twice. And these go together like that. Now I know you can see here, but where those go in, that won't be seen. If it is, I can just touch it up with a brush. But you have to sand around in here for this to work smoothly. And then when you paint it, well, the paint's going to interfere a little bit, so I'm probably going to have to sand off some paint here. You'll also need these bushings here. They're bushing A. And when these go in, you'll notice they are longer than the thickness here, so they trap in that other piece. So when you put those in, if I can, there we go. So that goes in like that. Let me sand that off a little bit because I'm pretty sure that's going to interfere. So that goes in like that, and then that pushes in and locks that in just like that. And then of course the other one on the other side, just like, come on, cooperate. A little bit of persuasion. There we go. And this is a, I don't remember where I got this. It's like a leather-faced mallet. Good for hitting stuff you don't want to damage. And so that's that. And it's a little bit tight, but that's better than, tighter is better than looser. So on the back side, you can see a little bit where I sanded off. I can just go in and lightly touch that up later. That's not that big of a deal. And of course, I've got the other one like this. Again, same thing here. I'll just go in and touch that up. All right. And of course, this side will never be seen because that's going to be covered up by, something. So those are the 2 feet. Now, once you've got those, they have you put these pieces in. Now, it would have been easier, I guess, to put those in before we attached them, but yeah, whatever, it'll still be fine. Those pieces I just painted. They're probably not dry yet. That's right here. Now, I didn't sand those. I just left them as printed and shot them with the same satin black. Once this dries, I'm going to do some airbrushing with some burnt iron, probably some magnesium. What is this? This is graphite. But I think I have a magnesium, so I'll just do some dry brushing. I might even go over those circles with maybe maybe silver or something, just to kind of add some depth and add some detail, and then those will get glued inside of there. Next up are these pieces here. These are the ones that I just rattle canned. I just sprayed them. Now, one thing to point out with these pieces, now these are the same. They're identical, mirror image here. So glue those together, fill the edge, sand them smooth. That one's a typo. That should be part 56. They call it, I think, that should be 55. So you got 50, 53, 54, and then 55, 56. And again, they're labeled properly on the STL file. So once those are dry, painted, or once the paint's dry, we'll pull those out and I'll show you those. So just give me a minute here and we'll get some more work done. Okay, so we've got those 2 together and these are painted. Now, they didn't come out exactly like I imagined, but I think they're okay. They'll work. Like I said, just minimal, whatever you want to call it. And nobody's going to be looking up that view anyways, but it just gives it a little bit more depth to it, I guess. But anyways, again, those will glue in just like that. Mine's a little bit tight, so I'm going to have to shave those edges a tiny bit, but you get the idea. That'll glue in like that. This one glues in like that. Again, it's just a little tight, little bit of sanding to fit. And we got one of those that'll glue in there. That pretty much fits perfect. And this one glues in right like that. So that's what that'll look like on the back side. Again, I'll touch that up so you can't see that. All right. And as soon as I get a nice day where I can do some airbrushing, I'm going to like I said, paint that edge here. I'm still trying to decide between something like stainless steel or titanium or something. I haven't decided quite yet. So let's just look at what's left for the leg pieces. These, let me go grab those real quick. We've got those. And I think earlier I said they're identical. I think earlier I said, you know, those are exactly the same. They're not. They're like mirror image. So yeah, they typoed in the instructions. I already told you that. They typoed those. But on the actual kit, the parts tree had the correct number stamped onto the parts tree. That's how I knew they were typos and what they should have been. So we've got those. As far as color goes, I've been debating between, when you look up the actual model. Oh, and by the way, a couple of you have commented on my last YouTube video and on Thingiverse that this is actually called the VF-1D trainer. And I don't know if I knew that or not. If I knew it, I forgot. But I definitely appreciate you guys for letting me know that it's called the VF-1D trainer. And when you look that up and do an image search of those, a couple of different paint schemes come up. And I was trying to decide between the two. One of them is this color, which is desert sand. That's the closest I could match on a cartoon, on an image online. But desert sand and white. The other one was desert sand and orange. And I was going back and forth, and I decided on the orange scheme. So we'll be going this and orange. So these are going to be that color. And in here, I will go back in later just a paintbrush, and I'll paint that flat black. And in between all of those, I'll paint those flat black as well. Now these also get bushings, and that's letter A, the number A bushings. And so I got to push those in. Of course, the other side on this one. So we'll push those bushings in. So again, paint and bushings, those will be done. And the next step after that, those then go into these pieces. Let me grab those. So again, there's a left and right of these. And of course, another bushing goes in here. That's going to be bushing C. And again, I'm calling them bushings for lack of a better term. I printed all the bushings in ABS. I think I already said that before. So in the STL file, I think it's the first one, there's a file that's just called bushings. And or there's a folder that just says bushings, and it has all the different bushings. So you can just print all those together. So that goes in here, and then that will go over top this way. Now this one's not done yet because these get painted gray. So I'm going to have to mask off and airbrush those gray. Then I'll go into some panel line and just kind of highlight that a little bit. I'm going to panel line panel wash that a little bit. So those are those. And of course, as you can see, those go around those pieces. And then the next part, we have the gear legs and the wheels and tires. Now I've printed all of those except I have not printed the tires yet. I'm going to print the tires in Ninja Flex. Gear legs I printed in 2 pieces like this. That way, that was the best way I could think to actually have them print properly. And they just get bonded together this way. And there's a little bit of support material here that you'll have to cut out very carefully so you don't break the scissors. So once that's together, it will look like this. Now I still need to sand all that smooth and clean it up and polish it up, so I still have to do that. The wheels print uneventfully. There's a wheel and the axle pin that holds the wheel on. Again, I printed in 2 pieces. You just have to bond those together. That will go through the gear leg like so. The main will go, you'll have to clean that out. Ream it, cut it, sand it, whatever. Sand that down until that goes on like that. And of course the tire goes on over top of that. So I still have quite a bit of work to do on the gear legs. And then we can finally start assembling all of that stuff together. So you'll have one of those. and then you'll put the foot in, and that section in, and the gear leg in, and the little piece that locks the gear leg up, which is just printed out of PLA. That just printed one piece like this. And the doors, I'm still working on the doors. The doors, it's an odd shape. It had to print this way with support material under here. So that took a lot of sanding and filling. And then the other one, again, printed this way with support material under here. So that's still a little bit rough. I have to clean that up a little bit. Again, there's a left and right door, so make sure you're on the correct one. They kind of messed up part numbers again, because here they're calling that door 41, and on the other leg, they're calling the door 41. But they're not the same, they're mirror image. So just make sure when you print 41, you then invert it and print the mirror image of it. All right, and same thing with this. On this side, they don't have that door in yet here. These doors go on after the legs go together. Those doors go on here. So on this one, it's 42 with those little blocks that hold the hinge. So 42. And on the next one, it is 43. So those are labeled correctly. But again, you will print 42 and then invert the print to print 43. Now, that will take us all the way up to finish those legs. And of course, that fin right here gets glued on. So that will take us all the way up to step 16. Let me just get all the parts laid out so you can just kind of see everything all at once. So again, we have the foot. And then we'll have, let me grab the other half of that. So you have that, we'll have that, and that, and a gear leg, and a wheel, and the doors, and the thingy inside, and that will be a completed gear leg, minus the little fin that goes right up here, like so, like that, something like that. All right, so this will probably take me another week. It shouldn't take me another week, but it probably will. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish this on my own time. Hopefully none of you are offended that you're not going to watch me put all this stuff together. So when I come back on the next video for this, my actual next video will be the Jaguar model that I'm working on. But my next video here, hopefully these two legs will be finished. Of course, obviously I have to stop to paint this. These legs will be finished, and then I will start the next step with the hands and the arms. That's the plan. So hopefully you're enjoying this. Feel free to leave any comments, any thoughts, concerns, questions. And until next time, thanks for watching.